two lovely guests today. So we've got a lady called Michelle Rawlins, and she wrote The Steel Girls, and she's written a couple of books. And then we've also got a guy called Sir Harry Cowell. He is lovely. He's been like a record producer. He's toured with lots of famous bands. He's got some real stories to tell, and he's got the #1 show in Vegas. So really looking forward to talking to them all. But I'm going to introduce Michelle. Michelle's here. Michelle, hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you all.
Hello.
Nice to see you. So, Michelle, you've written books and you're a journalist, but tell us, how did you get into writing and where did it all start?
Oh, well, I am a journalist and I teach journalism at the University of Sheffield. So I've been working as a journalist for maybe 20 years when I first got into books, and I did a ghostwriting project with a lady who I'd written about for women's magazines, who is a phenomenal woman. She gives up her whole sort of period around Christmas to help the lonely, and she puts on a big Christmas lunch for about 500 people every year.
That sounds great.
Spend Christmas Day alone. Obviously she wasn't able to do it last year because of COVID. I know. And then so that was my first project. I wrote that for Penguin. And then from there, I was researching the women of steel, who are the female steel workers who worked in the Sheffield steel industry during World War II.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my agent about this incredible generation of women who, although they've been recognised, it had taken 70 years for them to be recognised by the government, but there'd been no book ever written about them. So I started doing some more research and interviewed some of these women who were still alive, and interviewed their families of the ones who weren't alive or were too poorly to be interviewed. And we pitched that to the publishers, and Headline bought that book. And that came out last June. So that's been out over a year now. And on the back of that, a different publishers, HQ Stories, commissioned me to write 3 books, fiction books, as opposed to non-fiction, so about sort of a saga series, a historical fiction series based on these women. So the first book's out now. That came out in April. Yeah. The second book comes out in November, which I'm just editing, and the third book, which I'm just writing, comes out next spring. That'll be April or May time.
Did you always want to be a journalist or to do something with writing?
No, no. As most people, I fell into my career. I did a history degree, and I always liked writing, and I liked research. So I suppose that's where the books work well together, because I can mix that love of research and writing. But no, I finished university. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I went home to Cumbria and I was offered some work experience on the local paper, which I loved. And that's where I really felt, oh, okay, I'd like to be a journalist. I'd covered a couple of biggish stories for them. So then I went back to college and did my journalism exams. My NCTJ exams, and then I started working for press agencies before I went freelance when I was 23. And I remained freelance until I took the job at the university. So I fell into it, but I loved it, and I tended to focus on real life stories, sort of women's stories, and some of the bigger issues that they have to deal with, whether it be domestic violence or discrimination. And that's sort of where I ended up doing a lot of my writing, and really learn how to be an ethical journalist and treat people correctly and tell their story in the way that they want it to be told.
I noticed with you, you interviewed that the mother whose baby disappeared, like Madeleine McCann. Ben was his name.
Kerry. I've interviewed Kerry and her other daughter, Leanna, several times. And Kerry and Leanna obviously come from Sheffield. Yes. So it's closer to home. And I think...
What was that story then? What was that about?
So Ben Needham, he went missing on the island, on a Greek island. Is it?
Little boy.
Yes.
Boy, he was only a toddler when he went missing. He wasn't even 2 years old. He's still never been found. You know, when you talk to Kerry, she only ever celebrated one of her son's birthdays, and you can't imagine as a mum the pain that she endures every day.
Every year.
The years keep passing, and she has to be able to live a life. But as a mum, you can't possibly recover from
No.
a child.
Was that one of the hardest stories you had to write about? I think I'd find that heartbreaking. I don't.
It is one of the many heartbreaking. Sadly, I've done so many. I work with a lady called Jo Lawrence still, whose daughter Claudia went missing in 2009. She's a chef from York, and she's
she's famous as well. Yes.
Yeah, it's a huge case, and you know, she's never been found either. I mean, I've interviewed women whose children have been murdered by their own father.
Shocking.
You know, so I sadly interviewed lots of heartbreaking stories about women who have endured, you know, the cruelest of pain, really.
Do you find when you're interviewing people that have had such terrible things happen to them, do you show your emotion? Do you actually cry, or do you have to really bite your lip and not cry? How do you handle that? Because if it was me talking to someone who had something so awful like a child taken or something, I'd probably be in tears all the time. So
it's very tricky. I mean, you're there as a professional, and they want to tell you their story in a professional capacity because they want you to get their message out there. But in the same sense, you'd have to be made of stone not to feel emotionally attached in some way. I think when I interviewed Claire Throssell, whose 2 sons were murdered by their own dad, I found that incredibly hard, and I'm absolutely sure I cried. And she comes from the same village as me. We live in quite a small area. In Jack and Paul's case, he lured them to the attic and set the house on fire. And sadly, the eldest child lived for 5 days, but incredibly poorly, obviously.
Oh, how terrible!
So no, it was, and I still work with Claire now. In fact, I'm bringing her into the university in next semester to talk to our students about empathetic interviewing skills and being able to interview people in the right manner with the dignity and respect they deserve. She's gone on to be an ambassador for Women's Aid and IDAS, which is a domestic abuse service. She's helped change the law so that women can't be cross-examined by their perpetrators in court, in the family court.
That is so shocking,
Which, the fact that they could be, is beyond belief anyway.
So shocking,
You would think that the natural thing is that wouldn't happen. And yet a law has to be brought in to deal with that.
It feels like a very archaic system, you know, when you've got women who have been manipulated or abused or badly treated for years, and then suddenly they have to face their perpetrator in a court where they're then vulnerable again. You know, and sometimes they can't afford their own lawyers, so they're defending themselves. You know, the fact that they can be allowed to be cross-examined there's something very wrong with our justice system to allow that to happen.
Doesn't that still happen in rape cases where the rapist can interview the woman and try and...
in a criminal court they can.
Yes.
I think their barrister can. Their barrister can in a criminal court. They can be cross-examined, but in a criminal
not the
court,
defendant.
No, the defendant can't stand up in court and cross-examine. I mean, they still have to listen to what the defendant will say, and sometimes hearing that is painful enough. But no, the family court system needed changing a long time ago.
Absolutely, yes.
It's such a shame, though, bad things happen, and yet, you know, and something from that, you know, that has it's so sad, isn't it? That it
is, but the other thing that we could dwell on all the negatives, which you know, it's easy, but I also think that the thing we should celebrate is the women have achieved so much.
And
they've achieved something really positive. You know, and I think Claire, who I speak to frequently, is delighted that her sons' names won't be forgotten, and she gave them a voice. And I think their voices help future children from hopefully being put into an awful situation where they're at risk.
She's got to be very strong and very brave, and I don't know how she does it, but
no, I don't think many can actually grasp how she's still here today. But she is, and she fights on, and she's amazing. An incredible inspiration of a woman. So I always think it's nice as a journalist or a writer to be able to give people, whether it's men, women, whoever, the chance to have their voices heard in a meaningful manner where they can create positive change. So journalists often have to deal with very, very sad and traumatic situations, but if we can do something positive as an end result.
You've helped a lady, and she, as you say, she's getting stronger, and you've helped her relay her stories.
Which is lovely, and she doesn't need me anymore in the nicest sense of the word. She's got her confidence, she's got her voice, and she can do she works very closely with Women's Aid and IDAS, and she can go on and do that now. So it's lovely to see her just go off and do her own journey, but knowing I helped her at the beginning when she didn't have the confidence to do that.
Oh, that's lovely. And Michelle, what's next for you now? What's for the future?
Oh gosh. So I've got an awful lot of work on at the university. I've got another book idea in my mind that may come to something. So I won't be bored because I appear to be allergic to relaxing. So I'll just carry on doing. I always think you don't know what's around the corner.
That's true.
So I just think something will happen and I will do it. And who knows?
So your books and that, if anyone's listening and viewing and that, they can buy them. Is that on Amazon or is that on your
site? The Steel Girls and Women of Steel can be bought on Amazon or in Waterstones or any good independent bookshop. And the Steel Girls is in Asda as well, which is always lovely.
Excellent.
And as I say, book 2's out in November.
Great.
Exciting times, really exciting times for you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
I'm very lucky indeed. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I hope, as you said, you haven't felt very well, neither, bless you. So thank you for coming.
There'll be more Lemsip.
You look great.
You do look great. You would never know.
Hello.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely to talk to you all.
Thank you so much, and well done to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to take care. Thank you.
Take care. Yes.
Bye.
Oh, bless her. That must be so hard writing about that. Like children miss.
Yes.
I'll be in tears. I just don't know if I.
Yes. That's very tough stuff. Very tough.
I'm just going to let in the naughty one. I'm going to call him the naughty one, Sir Harry. He is very.
Sir Harry.
Where is he?
I can see you, ladies, but I can't.
Hello.
Where are you?
We can't see you, Sir Harry.
The symbol.
Hey.
There he is. Yes.
Lovely. Our handsome chap, Harry. I've been telling all the girls. I said he's very funny. And Harry, I'm going to say massive congratulations. 8 years running the #1 show in Vegas.
Wow, that's amazing.
Are you talking to me or what?
Well,
I've heard about ladies like you.
I'm a terror. So
I've been waiting 60 years for a stalker. Not too bad.
Well, how are you? Because you've had quite a journey, haven't you? And you've been trying to get back to Vegas. You can't get back. So what's happening?
Well, the borders are still closed. I mean, you can't get back as Johnny Foreigner. You can't get back. So
are you still in UK?
Yeah.
You're still here in UK?
I am, young lady. I am.
Yeah, causing trouble, I bet. So, Harry, you were a record producer, but also you used to tour like with Ozzy Osbourne. You must have some stories.
I can't tell anything about Ozzy.
Really?
Why not?
Can you tell some stories?
Some of them you wouldn't believe.
your touring days and that, Harry? What was that like? And like, was it as much fun as we would like to think it would be?
Well, certain things were fun. Yeah, of course, it's fun. I joined the industry to travel the world, not for any other reason. I wanted to travel the world.
Yeah.
And it was either join the army and go to Northern Ireland and get shot at, or join a punk band and go on the road. So it's obvious what to do. It was a bit of a difficult one. Yeah, I didn't have to ask any woman for advice. I went with my own heart. Yeah. So I travelled a lot, which is what I miss now. Stuck here in England. I love England, but the idea of being stuck here for 16 months now, not travelling. I've never not travelled since I was 9.
Yes,
So,
it's been a long time.
16, so it's very odd, very odd.
It's been tough, but your career then as well, you've been like a music producer, and you found Catherine Jenkins, didn't you?
I signed her, yeah. I signed her originally, made her first record. I saw Catherine really as being very wholesome and very American. I saw it in America more than I saw it here. I didn't think it was going to happen here. You know, Charlotte Church was the predecessor.
Yes, she was actually. Yes.
And I went to Jonathan Jarrett, or should I say Professor Jonathan Jarrett, with her, and he turned it down. Didn't want to. He was, I think, in hindsight, he was worried about finding another Welsh star and it not going right. And of course, it didn't. It did go right, you know.
Yes.
And the rest is history. So her original manager was a friend of mine from my Asia days. He managed Asia and Yes and Aha and all stuff like that. He knew Universal Records really well. So I went to see him, and the rest is history. He managed a career for 3 years, and off she went.
So Harry, what does it take to be like a music, you want to get into music and you want a band or you want to be a singer? What does it actually take? A lot of knockbacks?
Well, of course, it's knockbacks. I suppose you've got to have a lot of guts, because you're going to get told. I would tell anybody who wanted to be a star today not to do it. I stopped my daughter doing it in a way, because I knew that it was hard on her. She went to the Brit School as a dancer, and obviously they're even worse. They're going to reviews or interviews for West End shows and stuff like that, and they're going to get knocked back. It's awful.
Yes,
it's awful.
Yes.
There's no middle ground. I mean, you either make a lot of money or you make no money at all.
Yes,
you can't make a living. It's very difficult to make a living today.
Yeah.
So what do you do in Los Angeles?
So I have a show in Vegas, which is The Story. We came up with an idea of, it was Simon Napier Bell's original idea that he came to me and I said it will never work. So his idea was of coming up with a genre of music. So at the moment you go and see a band and there's a tribute band. So that's Australian Pink Floyd and all those. And they're not normally very good, to be honest. The players aren't very, very good. And we had an idea of doing a genre of music with the band being that genre of music from bands in that field. So everybody in my band is very famous, but you might not know them. So you could say, I know Heart because I know Nancy and Ann Wilson, but I got the guitarist who found them and was a guitarist in the band for, I don't know, 20 years or 10 years or whatever. He's now in Bad Company. So when he's not out the road with Bad Company, he's in my show as my MD. And I have 6 drummers, 6 different drummers, 6 different guitars. I have 2 guitars. So they're all in famous bands. And when they're available, they come into my show in Vegas. They stay there. And then they go on the road or whatever. So that's how it works. I've basically got 3 bands that can perform anywhere at any one time. So they could be on the road. They could be in Europe, or they will be in Vegas. And we do 5 nights a week in Vegas.
And Harry, back to your sort of like days, obviously you work with lots of bands and that. Is there any sort of funny stories or anything funny that's ever happened to you?
Oh, they're unlimited, but that's life on the road. You've got to remember that the road is, to an extent, is very boring. The hotels are lovely. It's all paid for. You're looked after, but it's all boring. To travel 5 days on a bus with a group of people you wouldn't necessarily want to be with necessarily. It's pretty boring. I actually caused a storm with my tour manager because I decided, having gone from East Coast to West Coast, the idea of going back for a show on Long Island was not going to happen for me. I was gonna get a cheap flight. I was going to stay in Vegas, in LA for 5 days at the Sportsman Club, which was a lovely hotel. and I'll get a plane back. So I hunted a cheap plane, found $120 or one way. So I booked it, and then I went to the tour manager and said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm staying here 5 days. I don't want to be on a plane with Chris Slade talking about all his antics with AC/DC and drunk and everything. Everybody found out that I was going on a plane.
Yeah.
So they thought, we don't want to be with Chris Slade either. So the whole band, including Chris Slade, funny enough, ended up booking a flight.
Didn't want to be with himself either.
Flights back. So the tour manager comes to me and says, "I'm really had enough. You employed me to do a job and now you're messing it up." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Because the whole band, everybody, including the crew, I want to go on a plane now. And I've got a bus here. I've got a bus parked outside with all our gear on it."
Oh,
I said, "We'll get a bus the other side, don't worry. We'll get one in New York."
Yeah.
He said, "What about the gear? I've got 4 days to get the gear here over to LA." I said, "Well, that's your problem, isn't it?" So he had to get all the gear freighted over to New York and pick up a bus the other side to pick us all up off the plane.
You're a rebel.
So
You're a rebel, Sir Harry.
That's what his job was. But that's the problem. It's boring. I don't know whether you ever know, but the reason of the idea that bands threw the television out the window is all bollocks. It was never about throwing the TV out of a window, because what's the point of that? It wasn't like that. The idea was that in America, they would normally give you a floor or 2 floors of a motel type thing, 2 floors high.
Yeah.
And they put you in ship rooms so they could get, when they were trashed, they get them all, the tour manager to cough up money to have it all redecorated and whatever. But the idea was that the tour manager went outside the room windows, and in a hotel where the telly was fairly close to the window, you kept the plug in the wall, and you hoisted the television out the window, with your foot up against the plug holding it, and then the tour manager would say, "Let go," and then everybody would let go of the televisions, and the one that lasted the longer was the winner. That was the game.
Okay, that's interesting.
Never about throwing a telly out the window.
So it's about your arm muscles, not about the telly, really.
About your foot muscles, because it was your foot holding the thing down. You could only do it in a hotel where the TV was close to the window, because you held it out. And it was also how strong the wire was, how long would it not break in the middle of it, or pull the plug out and off it go, and that was the game.
Were some of the rooms so trashed, Harry? Were they, yeah.
All sorts of games like that. All sorts of games. But they were the games that we used to play.
Yeah. I bet there's more you got up to, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure, yes.
Can't talk about it on here.
Especially with Ozzy as well.
Oh,
yes.
I bet you did have a laugh though, didn't you? But as you say, if you were touring with Ozzy, my God, you must have, had to deal with.
He was drunk most of the time, That's why Sharon was very good for him. He was drunk. He was a nightmare to get him on the stage. She'd be wary of him, but he'd vanish. And obviously, she'd do her best not to make sure there's no alcohol about. But you can't put. Very difficult to go no alcohol, because it rules out the whole band not being alcohol. Then he causes problems with the band. Yeah. Chris Slade, I wouldn't say he's an alcoholic, but he does like a drink. We always had pictures of him. Everywhere he went with two pints of beer, one hand, one.
Oh gosh!
I called him 2 pints lady. But, he was not allowed to drink on the AC/DC tour because they were all alcoholics and they banned all alcohol. So he had to go up to his room and drink, sneak it, and wasn't allowed to carry around with it. So he made up for all the other tours he did, which worked with AC/DC. But most of those guys, unfortunately, had habits that were boredom, and it's not really a problem having alcohol, but you put alcohol and drugs together, or even having drugs.
That combination.
I can deal with drugs, but I can't deal with alcohol and drugs. They just don't work. Yeah. You end up being dead normally, So that's the problem with it. It's very difficult to work that one out. I remember going, one of my first tours was with a Mercure Hotels in France. And I remember I got the venues were all the same, and a stadium is the same as a stadium, arena is the same as an arena. You're trying to think, what did it look like? Where was I last night? With that hotel, but they've all got the same curtains and the dark curtains behind them, all the same menu.
Yes.
So you've got no idea where you are. You just no idea where. It's not glamorous at all in that way.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No, you think of it as amazing, yeah. As you say, you're thinking, "Oh, you're traveling the world, you're seeing these places," but as you say, you probably not wake up the next day somewhere else, and it's like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
same place. Yeah.
It's the same place.
Well, the other thing in America, you got stuck in a bus. So you get in the bus and you go to sleep, and then you wake up around about 8 o'clock in the morning when the driver ends up at a hotel.
Yeah.
He goes in, has a sleep in the room. He has a room. We have normally the band and crew have 2 rooms, but we have a whole day to do nothing. I mean, that's the nightmare. The whole day to do nothing. I mean, it sounds lovely. We have a swim, whatever, but you've got the whole day to do nothing. And then at 5 or 6 o'clock, if you're not working that night, the bus driver's up, ready to go. And you've got to get back to the bus, because if you don't get back to the bus, the driver will go. End of story.
Yes.
Really?
I had a slight problem with one bus, almost missed. If it wasn't for a police officer seeing us pedaling down the freeway, stopping us, explaining why we were pedaling down the freeway, and putting our bikes in the thing, putting the sirens on and running down the freeway to meet the bus, which was about to leave.
Oh,
but he was a massive AC/DC fan, and Chris Wayne was in the band, so we got there because of him. But you're not allowed to, like here, you can't cycle or
on the
motorway. But we were cycling down the hard shoulder, lead singer and myself, just doing anything we could to get back in time for the bus.
Oh my
goodness, what a thing.
But did you ever play music?
Yeah, I never played music. What's the point of playing music? No, I was originally a drummer.
No,
that's where I originally came from.
Yes.
I was originally a drummer, and then I got offered a job as a drum, well, we were called roadies in those days. It's all glamorous now. Everybody's got a glamorous name now. But so I worked with Genesis for a period of time, 18 months, did the drums, put the drums up, took them down again. And that's how I started my career, being paid for it, rather than being in a band. Paid.
Yeah.
You'll see quite often, like there will be bands, I'm sure The Cure, for instance, their keyboard player was originally the drum tech and things like that. So they do, sometimes it does happen. They know the tech really well. He's really good. And he comes in and takes over.
I think, as you say, you've had an exciting life, haven't you? And as you
say,
you're only just halfway there, Harry. You've got loads more exciting.
No, I haven't got too long to go. No, I've honestly, I've had I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky. It's funny. I was with my friends are all in proper jobs. You know, I'm the only one who's not a proper job. And my friend I go out with him every Thursday night. It's my lads' night out in Twickenham. And he's the number 2 global head of MasterCard travel. So he's number 2 in the world. So if he can tell you where people are filling up their tanks, how busy flights are all over the world. That's his job, number 2. And he said to me, I haven't really liked my job for many years. I wish I had a job like you.
Wow.
I thought about that. He's number 2 in the world for global MasterCard.
Yes.
And he's saying that, and another friend of mine who's a big auditor for HSBC, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank, who was the auditor for the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. That's how I know him. He said, "I've hated my job for years." You suddenly see these people who have these amazingly powerful jobs, but don't actually enjoy them very much. You know, it's
strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing.
And they want my job, you know. And I said, when Martin said to me, "I'd like your job," I said, "Martin, I haven't got the job." Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Let's have a swap at the moment, then. I'll have yours. You can have mine.
But they're doing Zoom calls from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock because they're working. All over the place. You know.
Yes.
Back to Vegas, party time. I think that's
back to Vegas. Yes.
But I don't party in Vegas. It's a mad place. It's not a good place. It's unfortunately, I'm all right because I'm not addictive. But unfortunately, if you're addictive personality and you're in Vegas, it's really, really, really difficult. There was a guy I met. I can't remember his name. He's a very big guy, and his wife is also very good. They're comedy people. They dress up as a policewoman and a policeman in America. Do you know them at all? You know the show they're on. I can't remember what they're called, but they're Molly and something and Molly.
I don't.
No, I don't.
Well, they've got a big show. It's been going for 10, 15, 20 years on American TV. Yeah. And I met him, and he was saying, I went to Vegas to work there, and he said, I'm addicted to things. And he said, I had a real job. He said, when you go to Vegas, before we started the show here, he said, you've got to find something to do, play golf or do something or whatever. Otherwise, you'll get caught gambling or golf birds. Because everything's, it's just an adult's playground, you know?
Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah.
But they go mad. The women go mad and the guys go mad.
Well, it's probably you let loose, as you say. If you're in the UK, you don't go out much, you know, you behave, and then like when you're over there, like let's go.
Go mad.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you get the dumb guy who comes up to you at the bar and goes, "You can see that I got these 2 girls. They're in love with me. They want to come to my room." And I'm thinking, what?
Yeah.
What the ugliest guy. This guy went off with these 2 girls, and he came back and said, "Oh, that's fantastic." I said, "Oh, I'm pleased for you." And then the girls came back and said, "That was an easy one." That was about 5 minutes. But these men are so stupid. They get their watches nicked. I mean, it's quite normal to get your watch. You know. Well, that's what the hotels don't want. What happens is people rip and all, and Rolex is 11 grand. You know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds lucky. It's usually more.
Yeah, more. Yeah. Well, there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but well-known star. He got mugged in the Mandalay, I think, last year. And he woke up in the morning and he lost his handmade watch, Rolex. It was made to him, and that had gone all his money and credit cards, you know. So what the hotels try and do is they try and stop that happening, and they have people undercover. Because when we were at the Hilton, I walked up to a guy. I said, "Oh, what are you doing with your clothes on? You're not supposed to be here. You should have." He said, "I'm undercover. Shut up. I'm undercover." And he's a security officer. But I didn't know what he was doing.
I'm undercover.
They sit at the bar, and the girls come and chat them up, and they go, "You're nicked," you know, because what they don't want is people going online and saying, "I stayed at the Hilton last week and I got bad news for those
of course."
Yeah.
Called him out. I didn't know he was undercover.
Oh, Harry. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. But you, honestly, I said to the girls, "You'll make us laugh," and you always.
Yes, you did.
I'll give you a message anyway later, but thank you. And always good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Well.
Lovely to meet you.
And lovely to meet you.
Take care, you.
Lovely to meet you, Harry.